Good day, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to our seventh lesson and video, which is basics of family creation. So in this lesson, we'll just be covering what the family editor tool is, the basic forms of families, and guidelines for parametric family creation. So just to keep in mind, as I had said before, everything we have placed inside of Revit is essentially a family. That includes the windows, the doors, and the furniture. These are all considered family types. And every family was built inside something called a family editor. So these are built-in families, or hosted families, my apologies. Doors and windows can be considered hosted families, and then walls are built in, such as also floors that are actually families that inherently come in side of Revit. External family components, if I say want to place a different one here, I can just place this sofa. So if I place, I'll just go into 3D view, apologies. Oh yeah, here's some that are already placed, so I'll just copy this. I'll just place one here. If I place this sofa here, so for example, this here is considered a Revit family. So a lot of the times, families carry their own sort of parameters, I believe, as we mentioned before. So if I select this family, you can see here there's a bunch of other various family types that I can change it to, but we'll just focus on this family particularly. So if I go to edit type, you can see here, these are the kind of parametric values of this family. So you can start to see um, assembly code. So this information really depends on how detailed you want to kind of go in to placing towards the family. So when you do select a family, such as a sofa, you are prompted to this edit family tool. So if you do select it, it's a separate editing environment from your regular project. So you essentially open a family template file and build the geometry and parameters, then load the finished family into a project to use it. So I'll just create our own new family. I'll leave this here, and then I'll just come here to the home page. If I want to create a new family, the way in which I do that, I'll select a new project, and then I'll just ensure that, sorry, my apologies, you come here under families. You can see here, this is the models and this is the families. So if we want to create a new one, let's come here into new. And what you're prompted to now is a space where you practically decide what type of family you would like to create. So what that means is, let's go here. So I'll say English because we use metric system. You can see here, these are the various family templates that Revit gives you access to. So you can see here, if I hover over here, it says Revit template. So this is kind of like a beginning stage of creating your own family. So you can see here, these are the various types you can create, either a casework, a balustrade, a door, etc. So if I did want to create maybe perhaps let's just say a metric generic model, I'll select this one here, double click that, and then that'll open now into this family template space. It is very similar to the way in which a normal standard model space looks. So I'll just alternate between the two just so you can see briefly. So if I go back here, you can see here now I have these tools that are available on the ribbons, architecture, structure, steel, etc. But if I go into the family tool here, you can see now this changes. You can see I still do have my add-ins, but I do have like different sort of values here at the ribbon space. So you can see here, I'll have these tools that are available to me. And from here, we are able to start to create our own sort of special family. So we won't do anything too hectic or intense in this session. I just want you guys to get familiar with kind of understanding what you are capable of doing with these tools here. Essentially, you'll use the family editor whenever the object you need doesn't already exist in a Revit library, or an existing family doesn't quite match what a project needs. So in this space here is where you'll kind of create your family. So I'll just go open the sofa family that is existing. So if I select this and I say edit family, it'll take us to a prompt of where this family was created. You can see here, these are the similar tools that I was speaking about before. So So you can see here, this is kind of our family. The way it's created is you essentially have to kind of create various kind of forms and templates. So this is also something that you can do with families, is that you embed families. So in this space is the actual sofa, and if I select each unit, I can actually go into a separate space if I say edit family, and now I've even gone further into an embedded Revit family, which is kind of a cushion. You don't necessarily have to go into this much detail when creating families at points, but this does give you a little bit more control when it comes to parametric values and other sort of relevant concepts like that. Okay, I've just opened a new model and loaded a family that's in a metric value just for easier context. So I'll just select this chair here, I'll say edit family. So you can see here, this is our family. So you can see this family is a bit less parametric in the way it was created. It's a bit more model element based. So you can see this is our family, and if I want to change the way in which this looks, I can just change the scale here. So you can see this starts giving me more detail. So you can see here, this is our family. So the way in which you do start creating these families is it's good practice to kind of work in a flat view or like front, back, right, left. Kind of think of it as if you're drawing it in a section view. So you can see here, this is kind of our chair that's existing. If I go into this view, it's in 3D mode. I'll just close this value. No, sorry, just close this here. Yeah, I'll close these here, sorry. So that we can actually just open this and see all the relevant views that we want to see. Close this as well. Okay, awesome. So we'll have our front, left, and our bottom view open. Now just press WT. That'll take us into a window tile view. So now we can actually start seeing how our family looks. It's good practice to just kind of also use this format and model in a 4-pane view. It really does make life easier for you. So when you are kind of creating these elements now, you'll just come up to here in the create space, and you'll select extrusion, and the kind of view that you start drawing in will be the view that you are kind of going to extrude the element. So I'll just select this again, my apologies. Now I just select a plane, select there, then now I'll just kind of select these 4 views. So this is obviously already existing, so we're just kind of tracing over this. But I just want you guys to get a good handle on how we start to build our families. I'll say okay. You can see now I've drawn that sort of element there. So this is kind of how the seat was kind of created. You can either create something like this in a flat top view or even in a side view. So then you kind of start extruding the element as you see fit, and you can do that there. Beyond that, you can also start kind of giving these material or these model elements material values. So if I select this element, you just delete that I created there. If I select this here, you can see here I'm able to actually just kind of attach a material to it. So this has a parameter material attached to it. So it's something here that you can also kind of develop, which is a bit more advanced, but it's something that you will go into detail in our advanced course. Yeah, so just keep in mind when you are kind of creating families in this sort of methodology, you do have to select the element that you'd like to use. So you have various kind of tools that you can use here. If I wanted to create like a revolve sort of element, then I'll select that, and then I'll kind of just create that here. Select plane first, sorry. I'm not going to top view. Let's see, I'll just draw this here. So these are the different elements you can use. Let's just do that. And just specify the axes. yeah, just also keep in mind when you are kind of using these tools, it is also good maybe to perhaps to just highlight over the actual tool that you're about to use just to get a prior example of how to actually utilize that tool. So you can see here these blend tools as well. Here you can see how it kind of starts to work and how you can actually kind of manipulate elements to kind of match what it is you're trying to create in terms of a shape and a family. So you can see here, I won't go into detail with each one just because of, I suppose, a time constraint. So I just want you guys to get a good idea of how to actually use these tools. So you can see here, I just set a plane. Plane. Yeah. So you can see here now, that's a family that we just created here. So yeah, again, just kind of to get used to it, just play around with it. So you can see this family here, we are able to just kind of manipulate and edit accordingly. So you can see here, edit revolve. And if you reduce this here, you can see it starts to kind of change the shape. So yeah, it's really just a use case as to what it is you are trying to create. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you are developing these tools and using them. So you can see here, this is kind of a shape that we created. Yeah, so it's really just down to how you want to create them. And then another thing also to keep in mind is the void tool here. So if you do also create like I'll just create a basic square cube. I'll just extrude this. You can also just start to add voids within your actual families or your modeled elements, sorry. And you can select here. If I select, sorry, my apologies. If I select create and I say void form and I want to perhaps kind of create a void extrusion within this, I'll say set plane, pick a plane, select which plane you want to kind of manipulate the element in, put that there, and I'll just say okay, and I'll drag it through, and then you can see it starts to cut through that element. So yeah, these are the sort of tools that you kind of will end up using a lot of when it comes to family development and creation. So just keep in mind, you do have to just set your plane when you are kind of designing and creating these forms. Yeah. I'll just create a few of these forms just so you can get an idea of what we are doing. So I'll close this pane and I'll start a new family space, generic, say, generic model space. So this is now our model space area. So I'll just create a few of them. So you can see here, just a basic hexagon. Create that there. Also, just if you are having trouble with, sorry, this is actually Imperial. If you are having trouble with just like the way in which it looks, just keep in mind of the scale. Let's create it again. Just make sure you also select your proper unit of measurement. Metric generic model. So I'll just create a few here. Extrusion. So these are the ways you can create it. Just say there. Into 3D. You can see here the way it looks rough. You can just kind of start playing around with these values here at the bottom with the scale. So that's one that we can create. And then another one, like I said, is the extrusion. So if I say extrusion, and then I'll just place a void within this family, within this element, sorry, this model element. As you can see here, you can also just develop this in 3D. It's not entirely impossible. Just say void extrusion, set your plane, sorry, I'll pick the top plane there and make it a circle. You can see there, create that there. I'll just make sure I drag it through the model element. So that's our second one. And another one, like I said, is the blend one. So if I just come here, I just select this square here, just make it a circle, sorry. And then I can also just make this hexagon here, and the top, apologies, at the top, just do it there. Say okay, and see now our family is being created there. So you can also just edit where you want this to land. So if I improve, perhaps I can just increase the height, edit vertices as well. Yeah, just again, it's really just a use case of how you want to manipulate this and what it is you want to achieve. So until you get it right or feel that you are happy with what you're seeing, just play around with these elements and tools. So again, like I said before, you can attach materials to these things. So if I select this here, I'm able to kind of come into the material catalog over here, and I can just say maybe glass. Say okay. Just go into realistic just so you can see. Yeah, you can actually set this. So you can also just create a parameter to it, or just select a actual category. So yeah, these are just some things to keep in mind as well. So yeah, the various tool types that you can create, and then also, like I said, you can also just edit vertices. So if I am editing this, when I am changing this, I can just say edit vertices. I can actually just change where these land. So you can say, yeah, twist right, twist left, controls top. Yeah, just elements that you can kind of manipulate and say okay. So you can see here it starts to actually create this interesting shape for. So yeah, this is essentially how families are created inside of Revit. You don't necessarily have to create model elements inside of Revit. And by that, I mean when you are inside a model space and you would like to create families that you want to be reusable. So this is our model space. Inside of Revit, you do have this element here that you can say model in place. And this element is useful in a use case sort of way, especially when you're doing custom sort of like kitchen spaces and areas, etc. But something like this does actually tend to take up more time. You can see here it's very similar to the way in which our families actually look. So I'll just create something just so you can see here what I'm talking about. This here, and then I'll say okay. So if this is now created in a model space, it only exists in this model space. And the reason that sometimes can hinder your workflow is that it takes time and you're having to actually kind of create new families in each model. So it's not really ideal in that sense. And that is the reason for our families. They are reusable and you are able to kind of edit and add them to multiple types of model spaces. So if I kind of come here, the whole reason behind why we have families is that we are lazy in a sense, and we like to have furniture that we can kind of add to any model space that we'd like to add it to. For example, like this. Just like this here, say fine, say 1:1. So this family now has its parameters that are preset here and developed. And this family now is addable to any sort of Revit model space, as opposed to just being kind of inherent to and native to a specific model space, kind of like this model in place component tool. So this is usually good for, I guess, specific furniture types. You can see here there's the preview that you are kind of developing, like I said, with kitchens, etc. But when you are kind of creating, when you want to create something that you want to be reusable, you will create it as a Revit family. so that you can load it into any type of Revit model space that you so please. I'll just create another one here. So if I come here, this is now me creating more family types. Say sweep, sketch a path. Okay. Profile. Yeah, with something like this, you also have to just make sure that it does match correctly. So I'll just remove this here. So this profile here, I'll just make it like a, yeah. So this is now like a pipe almost. So this is now the sweep tool. So again, it's also good to just kind of develop something like this in a sort of in a flat view sort of format. And then another one would be the sweep blend. So I'll just say sketch path. So if I'm in like this, sketching a path. And then from here, what we will do is our first profile, we will maybe create hexagonal shape here, like that. And for our second profile, we'll just create a, okay, say okay. Our second profile will create a circle. Say okay. Say okay. You can see here now it starts to follow that shape. With this as well, you are still able to edit it. It is a bit more tricky in that sense, but you can do that. Let's do this here. Let's say okay. You can see it just kind of wants to end. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Sometimes the edit tool does kind of act a bit iffy, but yeah, it takes some getting used to. Now just create another one here. So yeah, stuff like this is really good to kind of just go into a specific view when you want to create these extrusions. And also just make sure you set a specific work plane. Say front, say left. Yeah, just set your work plane that you want to work in. And I'll create this circle here. It's okay. I'll create an extrusion within the circle. Void extrusion. Hexagon. Okay. So I can go into 3D. Once I've developed that now in 3D, it makes it easier to kind of play around and mess with what we've created. I'll just do that there. You can see that's the shape we've created. And then the last one I think will be just the revolve. The revolve tool we can just do in a as well in a flat view. So just go here, sorry. Apologies for jumping around. So revolve tool, we can maybe just do this. So this, you draw one profile. And then you have that profile revolve against the element here. So just reduce the size of that. So reduce the size of that. Just TR, trim and extend. Once you've drawn this profile in this sort of view, in this flat view, in this left view, you can just say axes. This is where the revolve will revolve around. Just go like that, and you can see that that's our shape. So yes, just keep that in mind when you are developing. So the extrusion tool, this is here. There's yeah, just inside of your Revit family space, the family editor space, the geometry is built from 5 basic form types. There's the extrusion tool, which takes a 2D sketch and pushes it straight through out a defined depth, the most common starting point for simple objects. And then there's the blend tool, which creates a form that transitions between 2 different 2D profiles, one at the bottom and one at the top. And then there is the revolve tool, which takes a 2D profile and spins it around an axis. Perfect for anything circular, like a round table or leg or a light structure or fixture, my apologies. And then there's the sweep tool, which takes a 2D profile and pushes it along a path, which can be a straight line or a curve, useful for things like a handrail or decorative molding. And then there's the sweep blend tool here, which combines both ideas with two different profiles swept along a path between them. Each of these tools can create either solid geometry, which is a visible material, or void geometry, like I mentioned before, which cuts material away. For example, a void extrusion is how you cut a hole through a solid form, kind of like how we did here. Yeah, guidelines for parametric, like beyond this as well, you can start to create parametric family types. So what that means is that you are able to attach kind of values and kind of make these default changeable. So you can see here, this family here is parametric in the sense that you are able to merely adjust values for it to actually change its type. So that is a bit more advanced, but it is something that you can do beyond family creation itself. So yeah, when creating families as well, it's good to note that you are able to kind of use reference planes and reference lines. This actually guides the way in which you kind of develop your families. So I'll just move these around. So you can see here, when I am this view here, I do have the option to just say RP, reference plane. I can just come here. So reference planes actually restrict how your family shape will kind of be restricted. You can see here, these planes here, when I am creating something such as an extrusion, I can really just select these reference planes and then actually lock these planes to each reference plane. Lock these lines, sorry, to each reference plane. So we're going to 3D. Yeah. You can see here now, I can actually just lock these to this. So yeah, it's just important to keep in mind. So let's create a basic sofa. So I'm going to create a square shape here. Once I've done that, I can go into 3D just to look at my shape. I'll just extrude it like this. Go back into this shape here. So I don't want it to be too big. So I'll just go into our front view. You can see here, just remove this across there, so we can see this alone. So you can see I can start playing around with my height and levels. So just put this here. See how tall it is as well here. So we'll just make it taller like that. Once I've done that, I can go into my left view here. I can actually just make sure it aligns with our reference level, and I can extend this to give it depth. Once I've created that, I am able to just kind of manipulate this and create a void shape, for example. So yeah, you guys will also just have to do this just to kind of give you a good understanding of what methodology you should use to create family type, Revit family. So just extend these reference planes. So we'll just use DI, which is dimension, and I'll just make sure that it's equal. So I can just do that there. Just say equal, and as well there. Yeah, just to measure it out. You can start to see the depth of it. If I go to front, you can see here, this is how it looks. So if I go into this view now, I can just select left, just so we can develop it in 3D view. So to give this kind of like a seating space, I can just select a void and say plane. I can pick a plane in this view, select there. I'll just test it again, sorry, select there. Then I'll start to draw my sort of sink for people to sit in. So I can just do that just to make sure that it actually matches and levels out. Same 1:10, because I can't see that value. I'll show this. This is maybe 500. I'll also change this to 500 just so it matches. That's perfect. Okay, cool. Just say okay. Okay, just start drawing that inside, and you can see here this now starts to look like a sort of couch that we can kind of sit on. Once I've done that, I can select my material. I'll say here, and I can go to my material library, and then I can just kind of select what material type I'd like attached to this. I'll say okay. You can see here that is our sort of couch that we've developed. So yeah, as an exercise, I'll just need you guys to just kind of develop that, and then just yeah, get used to kind of how this actually works and what a Revit family is. Yeah, so when you are building a family for real use, follow this general workflow. Start from the right template for the category you're building. Just make sure you do pick the correct one, i.e. a door template will behave differently from a furniture template. Define your family's origin or insertion points. Lay out reference planes and reference lines to guide your sketches. Add dimensions to those reference planes, and then label those dimensions to turn them into parameters. So that does actually assist you in developing your family. This is essentially what makes a family parametric, meaning a user can type in a new width or height later without you rebuilding the geometry. Build your solid and void geometry constrained to these reference planes, then flex the family, test it, make sure that the parametric values to confirm the geometry updates the way you expect before you save and load it into a project. So what that means is that you are able to kind of restrict the actual family in a sense. If I say DI, you can see here, just extend this here. So by locking these sort of dimensions, this is how you kind of start to create a parametric value. So you dimension this and you can lock it. Once you've done that, you can actually give these dimensions a parametric value. So you can actually just kind of say armrest, for example, and you can say okay. So when I do kind of change this value, this parametric value, you can see currently it's 500, but if I do say, perhaps I say 1000, say okay, you can see what happens is that it actually adjusts. So just make sure that this actually is also locked to that. So I'll just change it again. Just lock that there. Lock it to that value. So that when I do change this parametric value, it does actually flex. So to test that, you can just come here and you can see that that does flex. And also here, I'll also need to make sure that it's locked to that. So just like that again, lock that there. So you can see that it'll change with this. So if I say now 1000, okay, you can see what happens is that that armrest actually expands in size. So that is how you start to develop your kind of parametric element to your models, which is a bit more advanced, but it is something that is relevant in this case. So just keep that in mind, that you do have to just use a parametric, you have to use your reference planes. So you'll click RP, then you'll just draw your reference plane accordingly. Just make sure it cuts across through the entire model. And then also use your DI dimension, and then attach your model element to your reference plane. So by doing that, you'll have to just kind of lock it. So when I select that, you can see that that's lock button appears. I say okay. Even with this model here, you just have to drag it and then drop it until it lands on that reference plane. Drop it there. Just remove these values because they're not too relevant to what we are doing. So just drag and drop that there. see that that's already locked. So yeah, just play around with this and then just ensure that you do kind of lock it to the actual reference plane. That way you are able to adjust and name your reference, your parameter type, and then you can kind of change the values in this space here. So this is the one that I created here, armrest. So yeah, just as a closing line, essentially that is Revit fundamentals from open to documentation. You won't obviously remember every tool from a single watch through. The goal today was just to make you comfortable with any unfamiliar and intimidating tools. So when you do sit down on your own, you are able to open a project, click around, and like I said before, don't be afraid to break something. I believe that's what the practice files that I provide you guys with will assist you with. So yeah, just keep in mind that to get good at Revit, you just have to get used to kind of the user interface, the tools, and what you can do. Push your limits and just ensure that you do kind of test what is capable. Thank you so much for attending. I hope you guys have a good one. I'll prospectively see you guys in the next one. Thank you.